I'd like to welcome everyone to HTSA's first Spotlight series of the year. We're exploring consumer and community involvement with different demographics. Week 1 will be touching on older Australians. So I'll delve into some description later on, but before we begin the webinar, I would just like to acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the Adelaide region. We recognize the Kaurna people's cultural, spiritual, physical, and emotional connection with their land. We honor and pay our respects to Kaurna elders, past, present, and all generations of Kaurna people now and into the future. So what is the Spotlight series? Some of you might be familiar with this initiative, as this is something that we've been running for a couple of years now. We've run 9 different Spotlight series topics over the years. What this is a month-long education initiative aiming to build knowledge in key areas of research translation. So we've explored in the past implementation science, research impact, how to get funding from the MRFF, patient-reported measures, communicating your research, etc. These month-long, events consist of 4-hour-long webinars held on lunchtime on Thursdays. We invite a whole range of different experts on that specific topic, and we share for that whole month resources, including links to training opportunities, key publications, guidelines or documents that are relevant. And that's all shared on HTSA's LinkedIn page. And at the end of the month, what we do is we compile all of that content into a 1-page summary with the links to the 4 webinars. All of this is also available on the HTSA website. So if ever you want to explore one of these topics, you can go back to our website and explore at your own pace. We are a research translation center. We are accredited by the National Health and Medical Research Council, and HTSA is its own research translation in South Australia, which means that all our partners are across the state. They include the 4 universities, soon to be 3, SAMRI, which is where we're housed currently, SA Health, including all the local health networks, the PHNs, which is the primary health networks, both country and Adelaide, the Commission on Excellence and Innovation in Health, and the Aboriginal Health Council of SA. And our purpose and our vision really is to enable and to accelerate the adoption of research evidence into the health system so that we improve health outcomes for South Australians. We do that through 3 key pillars of activities. One is really ensuring that research that's produced in SA addresses key health issues. The other one is that the health system is actually open and able to adopt evidence and latest research. And finally, it's to empower the people. So actually ensuring that people know how to do research translation and develop those skills and that leadership, which is where the Spotlight Series initiative sits. Like I said, this month we will be delving into consumer and community involvement, which is a topic that we've explored before, but we wanted to go in even deeper and specifically explore the recruitment part of doing CCI and ensuring that we are engaging with different demographics. So this week we're exploring engaging with older Australians. Next week, we'll be looking at people with intellectual disability and people who are frail, homebound, and bedridden. Then we will explore partnering with multicultural communities and finally with youth. So each of these different demographics have their own, considerations, or you might have different strategies to engage with them or different ways to communicate. And this is what we'll hear from the different speakers over the course of the month is how they've done it and what's their experience been. And these topics were developed at the request of researchers and consumers that we've had the chance to collaborate with over time. Now, today's speakers will be joining us from the Council of the Aging SA. We have Rachael Nielsen and Ian Halkett, who will tell us about their experience in working together and in, I guess, matching researchers to older South Australians. So I'll introduce them both to you, and then I'll hand over to them for their talk. So Rachael Nielsen is the head of the plug-in and the research and engagement manager at COTA SA. She leads the research and engagement activities across COTA and the social enterprise, the plugin. So she'll be telling us a little bit more about what that is. And she guides her team in delivering end-to-end research and actionable insights for clients across sectors and recruitment of older people across multiple disciplines of academia. So really, if you're wanting to recruit older Australians onto your project, we highly recommend you chat to Rachael. She'll be able to tell us more about that. And Ian is a retired academic, a senior public servant, and a company secretary with lots of experience in service delivery, information systems management, and corporate governance. He sat as a layperson on the Women and Children's Hospital Research Ethics Committee, and he's also been involved as a person with lived experience in health and well-being research programs. So first, Rachael will tell us a little bit about her work and the plug-in, which is the service that matches researchers to older Australians. And following this, she'll run a Q&A with Ian, and they'll chat about their experience working together. So I think before I hand over to them, just a reminder, we do have a chat function. I believe everyone's microphones are muted. So if you have questions along the way, please enter them in the Q&A or the chat. And then after their chat, I will go through them and we can facilitate a discussion that way. So please pop your questions in as they come up. So I'll stop sharing and I'll hand over to Rachael and Ian.
Hi, Augustina. Thank you very much. And hello to everybody who's joined us today. I will start by sharing my screen with you. Can everybody see that presentation that I've got up on screen? Brilliant. Okay, so thank you again, Augustina. So as she said today, I'll be sharing about our experience at the Plug-in and COTA SA of recruiting older Australians for research projects as part of this Inclusive Engagement Strategies series. So as she said, I will be presenting my slides for about 20 minutes, and then I'll invite Ian to join me on screen where we'll have a Q&A, and I'll be able to ask him about his experience as a volunteer participant. So Augustina's already done an acknowledgement of country, but I'll do one also. So I wanted to begin my presentation today by acknowledging the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today. I am privileged to have been born, live and work on Kaurna land, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So first of all, what is the plugin? You've already heard a little bit about what we do, but to provide a bit more context, the plugin is COTA SA's social enterprise. We're a specialist consumer engagement and insights consultancy. So a little bit like a market research consultancy, but we do specialise more in social research than market research. So really we are experts in the best practice methods for recruitment and engagement, specifically with older people. We use innovative methodologies and a flexible approach to meet clients' needs. So how we do this is we have a panel of 1,800 older people across Australia who we engage with to participate in research projects. So that's the recruitment side of things that we do, but we also do end-to-end engagement delivery as well. So in terms of, in the context of with health researchers or with academics, normally this is to complement a larger research project that is being conducted by clinicians, and we will complete the smaller sort of community engagement element of that research project. But we also do work for more commercial clients as well in aged care, and that will be delivering a full end-to-end engagement to answer a research question they have that might be about people aged over 50. So because we are a social enterprise, we're connected to COTA SA, and COTA SA is the peak body representing the rights and interests of older people in South Australia. COTA SA is a very trusted and well-recognised organisation, and we're independent. So because of this, it means that we're very well placed to partner with academics to recruit older people, because we are very well trusted in the community, and we only align ourselves with projects that align with our values. So people tend to trust the work that we're doing. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to start off about just a little bit about engagement itself before I move into recruitment a bit more in depth. So I think this quote is brilliant. This is from Carmen. She's one of our plugin participants. And I think this really sums up sort of engagement, but also what we stand for here at the plugin. She said, "It is refreshing for organisations to listen to the hidden, mature group of people who are not stereotype personalities, as we have had many experiences in our previous working lives that can be a contribution to helping people." So that sort of that quote touches on the two elements of what we focus on in our work, that is to value the lived experience of the people that we work with, the older people that we recruit for participants for projects. But then it's also that it's organisations are actually focusing on older people themselves. So they're putting older people at the heart of what they're doing, and they want to learn about older people's opinions and lived experience to help develop their, services, programs or policies. So engaging with older people, why do it? So, key tenet of what we believe here at the plugin in COTA SA is that older people are experts on themselves, on their needs, and they should be represented in those decisions, services and policies that affect them. So when we talk about the consumer voice and incorporating the consumer voice in any engagement or any project, this refers to the expression of the views, needs, experiences or outcomes of those people who have lived experience. So this may be the individual or family members or carers of somebody who is aged over 50. And as Marie says, who's another participant for the plugin, she says, it's about having a voice. When you don't have the opportunity to share, it's hard to have a voice. And that really does sum it up, I think. So really at the heart of what we do here at the plugin is we foster those positive relationships to build trust, so that it's mutually beneficial for both researchers and older people. And I'll be talking about that throughout this presentation, that's a real focus of what we do, is that it's both researchers and older people themselves are getting something out of this experience. That's really important for us. Okay, so now I'll talk a little bit about the recruitment side of recruiting older people for research projects. So this may be research projects as participants, but it also might be recruiting older people to sit as consumer advisors or consumer representatives on a board or on a steering committee of a project, for example. And our volunteer participant, Ian, that's something that he'll be talking to a little bit about as well. Okay, so what we have found in our work is that people aged over 50, and especially those aged over 75, in our work that we do, they are identified as a hard to reach cohort. And we find that unless it's a research project that is specifically aimed at meeting the needs of those older people, they can often be excluded from consumer engagement projects because they can be challenging to recruit, and it can be very challenging to engage with this community. So some of the challenges may be, and this is not homogenous across for everybody, but this is some challenges that can be presented for when we're recruiting older people. Can be reduced mobility, health issues or care responsibilities, limited digital access. Now we know that a lot of older people are absolutely connected online, but there's a cohort of older people who are not. So it's ensuring that any recruitment that does happen does not exclude those people who do not have digital access. Geographic isolation, so people who might be living in rural or remote areas. And then also with language or cultural difference, so COLD or First Nations. So I know that George is going to be talking about that in a bit more depth in future Spotlight series. So some approaches that we use when we're trying to overcome these challenges. The most important thing is that recruitment is not generic, so it must be tailored. So a one-size-fits-all approach does not work when you're trying to reach those hard-to-reach people. It's really using diverse utilising diverse modes of communication. So this might be calling people up on the phone or mailing out things to people or sending SMSs to try and get people engaged. So these may be people who don't have access to email or don't have access to a computer. So then it's these alternative modes of communication are going to be the best way to reach them. It's also deeply beneficial when recruitment comes from a reputable source, like COTA SA and the plugin, for example, because people are much more likely to give up their time when they know that the research is being conducted or going via a reputable source like COTA SA or the plugin. So all this to say that the main way to overcome these challenges really is tailored recruitment. So this is something that the plugin specialises in. We've been doing this for 8 years now. We've really focused, we've honed our craft of being able to recruit older people in a really respectful and considered way. So following on from that, you know, a key thing that we say to all researchers actually when thinking about recruiting any people, but especially older people, is that respect the process because recruitment takes time. Now, this is something that, you know, as I said, we have gotten better and better at over the years, and now we're experts in this area. So it's authentic recruitment to meet the needs of a project. It really takes time, it takes resources, and it takes trust between yourself and the participants. It's not a quick tick box activity that can be done seamlessly. It needs to be budgeted for to ensure that you're able to reach those people. And this is especially true when you're trying to reach older people from diverse backgrounds. So, you know, budgeting for something equals respecting participants' time. And when we do this, it says to participants, we understand you are busy and we thank you for sharing your experience. It says we value your lived experience and we want you to enjoy this experience and we want you to feel heard. Another thing is avoiding assumptions. So there's a few assumptions that are out there about older people, and one, I guess, myth that we would like to bust is that older people are not busy, because older people are busy. They're very busy. They continue to juggle work. A lot of them continue to juggle work before they've retired. They juggle caregiving responsibilities, volunteering, community roles, and very active social lives. So I think it's important to not assume that just because people are retired, they have a lot of free time to be able to participate. They still have lots going on in their lives and lots of things that they're participating in. So it's respecting that people are busy and respecting their time. It's also respecting expertise. So lived experience for older people often represents decades of insights that they're able to share in a project, and many will have very strong sector knowledge, and this is something that Ian has, and he'll be sharing a little bit with us as we get to the Q&A section of today. They also have an on-the-ground community that are able to provide on-the-ground community context and life skills that will enhance research. So something that we really strive to do here at the plugin is to treat older people as co-creators. So not necessarily just participants, but rather that they are partners in that knowledge building. So they are active participants and they are just as important as the expert researchers that are conducting the research. So in terms of the plugin, as Agustina said, if you are looking to recruit older people for a project, that's absolutely something that we can help with. And I'll just talk you through a little bit about how it typically works in us collaborating with researchers on a research project in terms of recruitment, but also we can deliver those consumer engagement activities as well. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, with the plugin, we have a growing community of over 1,800 older people. And this is made up of Australians who are aged over 50, and they represent a very broad demographic across the diversity of our population. So the plugin community, we find they are deeply, deeply passionate about participating in research projects that will help others. This seems to be a main motivation for participating and really what draws people to participate in projects. Chris, one of our project participants, says, I've attended 2 plugin workshops now, and I enjoyed it because you get to learn by talking to other people. And that's just a part of life. You never stop learning. So I think that really does sum it up as well, that we're looking for people who participate in projects that we're obviously there to gather data and to build upon or solve a research problem. But we also want our participants to deeply enjoy the process and to deeply be enjoying being participants in this project as well. So how does recruitment with the plugin work? So I'll just take you through, I've got a bit of a step-by-step guide, I guess, of a typical way that we help academics recruit for their research projects. So first of all, what will happen is health researchers will identify a grant opportunity, and normally this has a focus on older people. The researchers will then determine the consumer engagement element and the recruitment needs, either with collaboration with us about us being able to share our expertise and be able to share our opinion and what we think will be best. And then we will be able to develop a tailored approach and a quote to meet the project's needs. So this may be, as I've mentioned, to recruit participants for a research project, so as the actual participants themselves, but also to recruit people to sit on a consumer advisory group or a steering group, committee group as well. The plugin will then provide a letter of support for the grant, and then hopefully, if successful, congratulations, you have won your grant, and then we'll be able to provide a scope of work outlining our engagement, and then we'll proceed with the work to meet the project requirements. So in terms of what we do for our recruitment services, if you do engage the plugin, what we do is we develop tailored recruitment materials developed often in collaboration with academics. So normally this looks like a project flyer that we can have printed out, and we can you send out throughout the community, or it might be an EDM or a website page. And then we'll also develop a participant screening questionnaire. So this can be done as an offline option or an online option, depending on the needs of the community, the cohort. And then we have a reach to our our COTA SA e-news subscribers of over 10,000 older people living in South Australia. And then we also have our plugin community of 1,800 diverse older South Australians that we can send out this recruitment collateral to. What we also then do is we tailor recruitment emails out to our COTA SA partner organisations. Like I sort of talked about already, COTA SA is such a trusted brand, and our network reaches far and wide across South Australia. So we're able to really build on those good collaborations that we have and those good networks that we have to be able to get the recruitment out as far as possible. What we'll do is we'll then select participants based on the screening questionnaire that we have received to meet those project needs. We then manage, after those people are selected, we'll then manage each element of the participant management. So this might be emailing people, or making phone calls to explain a little bit more about the research, writing case notes that we can then send on to the researchers as well to provide a little bit more detail about the participants. And if, for example, it's whether we're recruiting for a focus group, we'll provide all the information that participants need to know about attending that focus group. So where to go, where the correct parking is, maybe exactly, we'll have photos to show exactly the way to find the room, because as me and Ian were just talking about it before we started, that finding how to get through a hospital can be a very challenging experience. So we'll really explain that to participants to make it as comfortable a journey as possible to actually get to participate in the research. So typically that flow of how we are engaged by researchers to recruit people for a project takes that flow. But sometimes we do find that a university or a research team has not budgeted for recruitment, and then they get into a bit of sticky water because they haven't developed a tailored strategy, and so they're not able to recruit older people as I guess seamlessly as they were hoping. And this is something that happened to us quite recently, that a research team contacted us saying that their project had fallen behind schedule due to lack of participant uptake. So they were then able to engage our services after the project had started to be able to recruit those participants for them. So we stepped in quickly to design a targeted, culturally safe recruitment materials, and then we utilised our trusted channels of the plugin community and the COTA SA network to be able to recruit participants for that study. So I've touched on this a little bit as I've been going along, but it would be remiss of me not to mention that, you know, our work does go beyond recruitment into end-to-end engagement activities to complement, normally it's to complement a wider university research project. So we tailor our engagement activities and approaches to support those conversations with older people. So this may be through one-on-one interviews, small focus groups, workshops, also through quantitative activities like larger surveys across the community. And what we'll do from this work is provide an evidence-based actionable reporting to enable researchers to make informed decisions that really put older people at the centre of services. So this is something that we've done with researchers a lot, and it normally is to complement a wider clinical study. So I've sort of mentioned this a little bit, but what we'll do is when we are doing wider consumer engagement projects is we'll work alongside clients to develop that methodology that meets their needs. So some of our most notable partners are across academic, but also aged care and government. We've worked with the major universities, University of Adelaide, UniSA, Flinders, but also Monash and Curtin University. And then in terms of aged care, ACH, ECH, Resthaven, Kalira. So we also do some work for state government as well and local governments. So we are a small but mighty team. It's myself and my colleague Shamila, who's our Research and Engagement Officer, and we work alongside our administration and policy support from our COTA SA colleagues to deliver these engagement and recruitment projects to meet our clients' needs. So if you have a research project, I guess or a grant application that you're seeking assistance with recruitment for, then please do get in touch, because we'd love to be able to assist in recruiting older people for your study, if that's the key focus of the study or just a segment of the study. So that's all from me in terms of my slides. I'll now invite Ian to come join me. I'll stop sharing my screen so that you can see us a bit better. Okay, Ian, if you'd like to come over. And I've got, thank you, Ian, welcome.
Thank you.
Can you see us okay? Yeah, you look okay. I've got some questions that I've got to ask Ian, and we're so thankful that he's joined us today, because it's all well and good me sharing, you know, the backstory of how things happen, but having somebody who's actually a participant is just such a brilliant opportunity for us to be able to learn what it's like from a participant's perspective, a volunteer participant's perspective. So I hope you find this useful. Hey, Ian, to get started, please do tell me a little bit about yourself, and mainly a little bit focused on your work background as well.
Thank you. Interesting. Already mentioned my academic and public sector backgrounds, but both of those areas I've had considerable focus on working with consumers and surveys. And preparing for this discussion, I was reflecting on my academic research in Canada and later in Australia, which was all survey-based empirical work back in the late 60s, early 70s. And there was a very different environment in terms of the protocols, ethical approvals, communications. It's been very interesting over the last 50 plus years watching the evolution from that kind of cowboy environment to the current much more mature environment and much more respectful environment. So in public sector, I had a great deal of involvement with working with consumer groups, consumer committees, housing cooperatives, again, processes that involved consumers on the ground. And later working with people who use information management systems, which is, I guess, another style of engagement. Subsequently, I've worked in statutory and not-for-profit organizations as mainly in project management and governance initiatives. And as already mentioned, a number of boards and committees, including back in the 90s. And as 2 terms as a lay member of the Research Ethics Committee at the Women's and Children's Hospital in Adelaide, which again gave me a lot of insight into communications with both, mainly in the case of the hospital, in carers, parents and carers, and the processes of consent, which I got very involved with on the committee. So I guess that's a bit of a summary.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So that, I think that's really helpful because it sort of illustrates what we're talking about in terms of having a breadth of knowledge and experience to draw from as a participant. And you did mention this briefly, but what research projects have you been involved in as a volunteer?
I'm involved in a number of sort of one-off short, they're almost like consumer satisfaction surveys relating to particular experiences or conditions. And a lot of those have been online or phone interviews and so on. I've had several experiences with longer, more intensive research projects, including one study into the impact of engagement in citizen science on well-being in older people, which involved, well, interestingly, wearing biometric tracking devices for before and after the 8-week period of participating with a group of people in photographing flora and fauna in Adelaide wetlands for 1 day a week to study whether participating in that activity improved well-being.
Nice.
That was a considerable involvement, actually.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And a couple of questionnaire-based surveys, again into well-being in daily life. They ran, actually, those 2 ran concurrently. One involved responding to 4 short questionnaires every day on the phone. And the other part of it was or parallel study was a much longer questionnaire every evening for 10 days, I think it was.
Okay, yeah. So more longer term.
Yeah.
And what about your involvement as a consumer representative?
Well, that's much more recent experience.
Yes.
I think through Plug-in originally, I put my hand up to engage in a trial of a digital behavior change intervention, which is a nice way of saying using a online application to encourage behaviors that would reduce frailty in older people. That was an early first Australian deployment of the Canadian developed program, and that originally I began that as a citizen science volunteer. It gradually evolved into a role on the project committee or board, which is currently running a trial now of an adapted version of the Canadian program in the city of Charles Sturt. That's running as we speak, and I think sounds as though it's going very well. So.
Brilliant. So you did mention, Ian, a little bit about how you got involved in various research projects through citizen science and through the plug-in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in one case, I also responded to very early on to an invitation in the seniors card.
Okay, yes, yep, that's right.
And interestingly, I've just put my hand up for another survey, another trial. It's not a trial either. It's really based. It's a DNA
Yes, yeah.
Based project out of Queensland, which I guess I was very interested because I originally got a letter from Services Australia passing on the invitation to participate. And I was randomly selected as a potential participant from the Medicare database.
Yes. So,
and it's all confidential. Confidentiality is there.
Yes.
They just forward a letter prepared by the researchers, in this case, are in Queensland.
Yes.
Asking for volunteers to participate.
So it sounds like it's sort of been a mix of happenstance that you've been selected, but also that you've been seeking it out somewhat. I'm curious to know what really motivated you to get involved in the research. So what was it about these projects that sort of caught your eye and I guess led you to want to participate?
Certainly the hope that I can contribute to health and well-being, improvements in services, treatments, and increases in improvements in opportunities for people, particularly, of course, from my perspective, aged people, and maybe help also is researchers generally understanding the needs of older people and the perspectives of older people in the community. Also, a personal level, I see it as a way of keeping active myself. I enjoy the involvement and testing, I guess, my knowledge and skills. I'm a curious person. You mentioned this. I look forward to learning new stuff. I have to continually have new stuff to bore the grandchildren with. And so good to meet and work with other people, and both researchers and other participants. So I think I've tended to gravitate more to projects that are based on collaboration, communication, rather than the online type experiences.
Yes, and that you're not alone there. We do find that participants are really wanting that face-to-face sort of engagement, so we do lean to do that sort of engagement more so than online, absolutely. So Ian, I would like to know a little bit about what your expectations are about being involved and engaged. So with research projects, I'm thinking about, I guess, your time commitment or travel, things like that.
You certainly mentioned the time.
Yeah.
And that is something that needs to be carefully thought.
Yes.
I appreciated your comments about other commitments, and when you're taking time, particularly, maybe it's particularly true of when you're retired, because when you're working, you expect to go and spend the time doing the work. When you're retired, maybe other people's expectations are that you won't be so committed. But once you commit to something, once I commit to something, I'm going to do it.
Yep.
And that can impact on all kinds of things in your life. I think it's also something that researchers need to appreciate is that while older people look like they have time, that time that they think might be available can be more limited
Yes.
than they expect
Yes.
by health issues or yours or other people's health issues, crises, family needs, and so on. You asked about expectations. This is my expectations of the project I'm talking about here, but I expect good communications about the purposes and processes and outcomes, expected outcomes of research. That's important. And if, I would say, if you want to attract people to a project, you really have to tell them what it's about.
Yes.
And sometimes that's not done all that well. I'll come back to that point, but sometimes it's done in quite an academic and technical way. And there are things, I've seen one on the plugin, which I've not put my hand up for because of what's that?
Yeah.
What's that for?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, there's an expectation that researchers will appreciate that volunteers don't always have, or generally don't have strong understandings of their particular methodologies, their jargon, and so on. I'm a practicing dyslexic and always have been. So I have very low tolerance for acronyms, for example.
Yes.
And it's surprising even now how often you get things that to the author read as common sense, which are full of jargon and particularly acronyms. I think a lot of older people maybe are not familiar with the environment of acronyms.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that one, and that's something that we hear as well. So you've spoken a little bit about, I guess, what you think it's important for researchers to know, things about, time commitment, communication, feedback of outcomes. Is there anything else that you wanted to add about what would be important for researchers to know? Well,
I'll come back to a number of points, I guess. Advice I might give researchers.
Brilliant.
I think it's important for researchers to recognize that most of the volunteers, most consumers that put their hands up are altruistic, truly altruistic. That might be a less common word in today's environment, but there are people who they might not get things right, but they are participating in the community interest as they see it. And I think it's a courtesy to recognize that.
Yeah.
Lived experience. You talked about how lived experience isn't just experience with a particular circumstance or a particular condition. But it's really important, I think, for researchers to reflect on how the whole of lived experience, think of it as not just professional experience, but it's family experience. And it's the experience of people who they know, who have they talk to over many decades. And beyond that, it's the experience of the media exposure, the experience of social media exposure. Dr. Google, there's not many people that you're going to talk to who haven't consulted Dr. Google.
Yes.
And the infinite supply of snake oil salesmen that people encounter. They're going to have a lot more contact with that world in many cases than they are with the professional world.
Yes.
And that needs to be acknowledged when you're talking with somebody. And I find it frustrating, I think, to see how much criticism we see in the media of the health system generally. And that is going to influence people as well. I mean, if they read the paper every morning that says there's this problem and that problem in the health system, or somebody else was failed by the health system, they're going to carry that into whatever the consultative process is.
Yeah.
And that needs to be recognized. You need to acknowledge that people have very different levels of capability and skills and knowledge. And you talked about digital skills, and many of the research undertakings these days require digital skills, which you may need digital skills to get yourself recruited. If you may need digital skills to participate, and well, there's several aspects of that. First of all, the research project might be an opportunity to help somebody develop digital skills.
Yes, yeah.
As a second outcome, if you like, of the research project. But it also might bias your sample.
Yes.
If the lack of digital skills either discourages engagement or discourages completion of the project. And that's something that I think needs to be wrestled with.
Yes.
In every case. What are we going to do? Maybe it doesn't matter if you're testing digital skills, but otherwise it's going to be significant in one way or another.
Well, it's very important because we at no point do we want to be excluding people from participating because they do not have those digital skills.
Exactly.
So it's about finding, I guess, the different ways of communicating with people that is offline. So not just email, but also post and SMS or over the phone. It's being agile to meet different needs. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's important to recognize the engagement. I mentioned it in my own case. I enjoy being engaged in projects. It's important to recognize that statistically, at least a third of older people, probably many more, much larger percentage of older people are lonely. And they will define themselves as lonely. So again, the research process can be an opportunity to address that reality. That leads to the observation that it's really important for researchers, people leading projects, to ask participants about themselves.
Yeah.
Not just what is your experience with this condition or circumstance, but tell us about yourself.
Yeah.
Take a little time and then listen to what they tell you. Because you might be learning as much or more than you are during the learning through the formal processes.
Yeah, that's great advice.
And also important to communicate in terms of, okay, I think I said this before, but talk about the project.
Yeah.
And its progress and encourage questions. Again, I've been in situations where the lead into a project is more of a lecture than a conversation.
Yes.
So, familiar, friendly, collaborative.
Yeah.
Are especially if the engagement is going to go on for a number of weeks.
That's right. Yes, because it's a long-term commitment from somebody, so they want to be engaged the whole way through.
Exactly. Scheduling is very important. Time is important. I've seen a high attrition, lost fellow volunteers because of gaps in timing.
Yes, yes.
You recruit and then nothing happens and nothing happens, and then you get some information and then we'll invite you to a meeting later, you know. And those long gaps, if they're going to be long gaps, tell people, okay, we will meet on the 1st of July, and then stick to it. And again, don't, you know, there's always a tendency to let things drift. Oh, we quite haven't got this ready. So,
but it's about communicating when those changes happen, so people are aware.
Exactly. Yep. And it's a question of courtesy, because generally the researchers will expect the volunteers to stick to deadlines.
Yes.
You know, we're having a meeting at 11 o'clock. You've got to be there at 11 o'clock.
That's right.
We're having a meeting on the 1st of July. Well, you got to be there on the 1st of July. You know, I guess, yeah, everybody has to accept the same discipline when you're dealing with other people. There's another one is tell people who you are. Sometimes when you're getting recruited or even after a project begins, what you know about somebody is a long academic title.
Yes.
Which is not really comprehensible to ordinary human beings.
Yeah, yeah.
So take time, tell people what you do when you're keep telling them what you do if it changes or if you want to elaborate on it.
Yes.
Feedback on outcomes of the research is very important. Mostly you will be told at the outset that we'll tell you what we find in this research undertaking. In my experience, mostly they do, although sometimes there's a lag of many months before you've forgotten the project and then you get a note. And sometimes the reporting back, if you like, to the participants is pretty superficial or technical. In one case, I got a letter that I'm sure was an abstract from a journal article, which I read it 3 times and I guess I understand it, but I think it was really saying we didn't find out anything.
Yeah. Well, that talks back to your point earlier, Ian, about the reason why I guess you feel motivated to participate in research, because you feel like you want to be helping and making a difference. So that's why that feedback loop is just so important, isn't it? Because it actually shows you what an outcome has come from the work that you've been able to do. So yeah.
And learn stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. In the interest of time, because we've only got about 6 minutes left, so I might throw over to you, Agustina, is that right, to have a look at if there's any questions that have come through for myself or for Ian. But thank you, Ian. Thanks very much for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you both. Thanks, Rachel, and thank you, Ian. It's so lovely to hear another fellow Canadian accent. So it was actually a great surprise. We do have some questions that have come through. Well, the first one is quick. I can answer this. It says that the session was very interesting. Will it be possible to access the recording at a later date? So yes. After the recordings, I'll just make sure it fits right, it's edited right, and we'll house it on the HTSA website. So we'll let everyone know when that happens. The second question is, you mentioned a plug-in quote. Can you give us an idea of the cost?
It varies. It varies so much. So it generally, our projects will start at $2,500 and then go up from there. So it completely depends on the cohort that we're recruiting, so the diversity or the complexity of that cohort, how many people, for what length of time they're being asked to participate in the research. It varies dramatically. So if you did want to, if any of the researchers joining us today wanted to get a quote from us, please just email us through. It's something that can be quite quick and simple for us to do. So we're really happy to answer those questions.
So then does that cost include the payment to the volunteer participants then? Or is that
the honorarium, that's right. So it depends. So we always recommend providing an honorarium to participants. And so that we would build that into
it goes via you then. I think my question was like, so it goes via you rather than the research directly paying the consumer.
It can. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
a great. That's the easy process.
Definitely we can issue the honorariums if that's what works for the researchers. If the researchers want to do that themselves, they can do that themselves. We can be incredibly flexible, and we can meet the needs of the researchers that they have in the project. So that's the wonderful part of what we do, is that we can really tailor our approach to researchers' needs.
That's fantastic. We have another question in the chat. It's a bit of a little paragraph, so I'll just read it out. Many research projects don't focus explicitly on older people, but have cohorts largely comprised of them. For example, this person's cohort has an average age of 67 in their project. Does the plugin support activity that includes predominantly older people, even if being older is not an eligibility requirement? Do you work with other non-profit organizations who have more health-specific aims, but less mature research and engagement support? So, for example, other not-for-profits like Heart Foundation or Diabetes SA.
Yeah, so the short answer is yes, we can. If the research project is not specifically about older people, but the cohort tends to be, we can still do that work. So we've recently were engaged in a project with University of South Australia that was about palliative care, and that was for people aged 18 plus, but it ended up being that the majority of the people who were participating were aged over 50, so we could help out with that project. That's no problem. But it really does depend. So I think best to get in touch with us and ask what's possible, because of course the focus of what we do is to advance the rights and interests of people aged over 50. So really we want it to be aligning with that aim that we have. Any work that we do wants to align with that aim. But it's definitely a possibility. So I do recommend getting in touch and we can have a talk about options. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I have one last question. This one is from me. You mentioned participant management, so as part of the plugin, I guess, service. So does that mean that you remain the key contact between you and the participant and the research team throughout the length of the engagement? Or when you match, do you then exit the relationship?
So it depends. So it really depends on what the needs of the project are. But what it could look like is if we're recruiting 10 people for a focus group, for example, then yes, the plugin would remain the main contact point for that participant. So we would be the one to provide all the information about where to go for the focus group. We would provide the honorarium, but we wouldn't be the ones there actually facilitating the focus group. In that instance, that would be handed over to the researchers. But then we would be the ones who would, ask the participants if they have any feedback about that. So yes, we would be the main contact. If it's for a longer term project, for example, Ian's involvement as a consumer rep on a research project, it depends. That was a very long term project. So I think what ended up happening is that we were it was like a dual responsibility of us and the researchers as to providing information to Ian and to then telling him the information about where to go. So it varies. Again, it's very flexible. Whatever
every project is so different, isn't it? So it's got a life of its own. So
yes, every project is so different. So that's why we can tailor our services to the needs of the researchers. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Anyway, I'll close the session here. Before people start signing off, I would like to share my slides one last time. Can you see this, Rachel and Ian? Can you see the slideshow? Okay. So before people start signing off, next week we'll be delving into the topic of partnering with people who are frail, bedridden or homebound, and people with disabilities. It's a bit of a longer webinar, so it's 90 minutes instead of 60. So it will begin at 11:30, just as a FYI for people. And also, if you would like to learn more about consumer and community involvement in general, we host twice a year a masterclass. So this will be our 4th masterclass that we will be delivering. The next one is September 16th. And it's a fantastic opportunity for researchers and community members to learn with and from each other. So we cover modules like, sharing your lived experience safely. What is CCI? A bit of a 101 module looking at recruitment. So similar to what you presented to us today, Rachel, but the concepts of recruitment, what's important, what should we consider when we start engaging with consumers, a bit of evaluation and communication. So it's a 9:30 to 2:30 event or masterclass. We include lunch and morning tea. So if you'd like to learn more, follow that QR code. It's from feedback. It's being very successful. So coming up in September, stay tuned. And if you'd like to stay informed with other HTSA activities, please follow these links. So once again, thanks Rachel and Ian for your contributions. It was a fantastic presentation. Ian, I loved all your summary points or your advice. Very great advice there. I'll be sharing that on our summary LinkedIn post tomorrow, some of these points. And again, like I said, this webinar will be housed on the HTSA website. So thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next week, hopefully.
Thank you, Agustina.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.